Mason. They are. I mean, it's like living in the desert and finally getting that cup of water. And it's not even a full cup, but just a little water and something to get excited about offensively.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Mike Catalano with you today, brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We've got a special return guest for you this week to talk about what they're talking about in Pittsburgh. The sports director of 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, Jeff Hathhorn. Jeff, thanks for being with us again.
Mike, this is awesome. I mean, these two fan bases get to meet in the playoffs. I know in Pittsburgh, they're excited about it.
Yeah, I think Bills fans are too. They're excited to be home. That was a big deal. As we're recording this, we've been talking about, we don't know what the weather's going to be. We had some craziness at different times in Buffalo. We were just down in Miami. So the weather there was obviously no issue. But I guess we'll all know by Sunday if the weather becomes an issue. Announced today officially, I don't know, was the Mason Rudolph thing up in the air at all? Did you think coming into this? I think he said today, right? Tomlin said he's going to start. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's why it was up in the air a little. Tomlin left himself an out last week, saying he was asked, hey, would Mason be your quarterback if you get into the playoffs? And he says, well, we'll see how that transpires. So he didn't say yes. And what he did was he left himself a window of like, hey, if we win this game in spite of Mason, I don't want to be on record as saying it's got to be Mason. If he's really bad, I want to have the option to go back to Pickett. But obviously he wasn't. He was 18 of 20, had the huge touchdown pass to start the fourth quarter. And they are all on board with Mason. So isn't anything about it isn't personal. It's not about next year. It's about trying to ride that wave right now.
Wow, that's something to see. And there has been a wave. We'll get back to the offense in a second. The other big story, TJ Watt, he's out, right? There's not going to be any TJ, no JJ, no other Watt is going to show up and play for the Steelers on Sunday.
No, JJ has threatened to dress up like his brother and try to get into the game, but I don't think I think the NFL will be watching that just to make sure that he doesn't. No, it's obviously a big deal. Most people have probably heard the stat. The Steelers are 1-10 without TJ Watt in his career in Pittsburgh.
Was not one of the wins against the Bills the one win?
So the one win, he actually had just returned.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It was the first game of the year, right?
Yeah, he had the contract dispute, and he went in. But in that game, he had 2 sacks and forced a fumble. So even in his return, he's an amazing player. And listen, when he left the game against the Ravens, he was not only wreaking havoc on the outside, he was the leading tackler in the game when he left. So he had been impacting on many levels.
Yeah. Mentally, what do you think that does to the Steelers? I mean, not many teams are led by their pass rusher, but it seems like for this franchise, certainly on the field, he's that guy.
Well, the good news is they still have Cam Hayward. The good news for the Steelers. And it looks like Minkah Fitzpatrick will return. Looked like he was going to play last week. It looks like he'll be back. And I think they have built this, with all the injuries, all the stuff that they've been through. And, the Bills were 6-6 and had to go on a run. Steelers were 7-7. They were actually 7-4, then got to 7-7, and then rebounded to get to 10-7 and get in the playoffs. So I don't think things really faze them. I think they're just excited to be in this game. Obviously, they know the impact of a loss of Watt, but they've had so many other guys come in, that were retired or were on practice squads that have made impacts. I think they almost believe that could happen again.
Yeah. I mean, where's the fan base with this team? Because I know during the whole Matt Canada thing, fans had to be, not happy. You weren't sure where everything was going. And they've given you, I shouldn't say unexpected when Mike Tomlin's coaching, because they usually hang in there and make whatever sort of a run. But this, would you say it was unexpected for what they did?
Not at 7-4, it wasn't. But then they lost to New England and Arizona, and people were dismayed / really upset. And then when they lost to the Colts, even Ryan Clark, who is one of the biggest Tomlin supporters and obviously played for Tomlin and loves the guy, went on and said, I think you have to start considering having a talk about his future in Pittsburgh.
Wow. Yeah.
That's where it was. Then they turned to Mason Rudolph. Not that he's the greatest quarterback ever, but he's made plays for them. Their offenses look different. They've been able to do some things with Mason in there. And I think now the team is, I think the fan base is behind this team. Like, hey, what the heck? We're kind of on borrowed time. We thought it was going to happen, then we thought it was over. And now you're back in, and let's see what happens.
George Pickens is a heck of a player, isn't he? I mean, I know. Tell me about this. Tell me what he's been like. Everybody sort of peeks in and sees something. I mean, we're not paying attention to the Steelers in that way week in, week out. And you see the whole thing about the block down near the goal line and what he said and all those issues. And then I see him making incredible plays when he's on the field. What's it been like for him? How dangerous of a player is he right now?
Oh, he's very dangerous. First and foremost, he's moody, like many receivers. I know you guys have dealt with one as well, guys. George wants the ball. He was frustrated. He did some bad things in that Colts game. He was called out even by his head coach, but he's responded. He had 2 big games. He didn't get any targets last game, but unlike what we've seen from him in previous games where he would pout or leave, he was all on board. Like, I think when he saw that Mason was going to give him opportunities, that got his enthusiasm up. And you see him blocking, you see him do those things, and credit to him. And I think this should be said too. It's not like Kenny Pickett didn't look for him, but most teams doubled him. Well, Cincinnati decided, well, the Steelers tight end had 100 yards against us last time, so we're going to do single coverage on George. That woke up the beast. And Mason got him the ball a few times. He got really enthusiastic. Then he had another big game against Seattle. And even though he didn't have any targets in this last game, he understands that he'll get his opportunities if he continues to play hard.
And how about the other guy, Deontay Johnson? I mean, again, from a distance, we hear about issues with guys, and then you see him making plays. Everybody has needed to step up. Where's he right now?
Deontay is, it seems like every drop is the biggest drop ever. So I think he has this thing amongst the fan base where they think he drops a lot of passes when actually he really doesn't. He's pretty reliable for them. He's a good guy to get you a first down. And he had that big play against Baltimore. I think, again, to Mason's credit, he's finding these guys in stride and he's allowing them, they're allowed to make plays. Now, they've worked off each other. It's not just that. Because that has opened up, the running game has opened up, and it's just made this offense a lot better than what we saw the first, 14 games of the season.
Yeah, and Harris has been good. Is he the kind of guy, and again, we might have weather, that you can just keep giving him the ball, keep trying to pound it? The Bills have been pretty good against the run. Then they had the first half in Miami, and at times you can run on this team. It's been a little better since Daquan Jones has been back, but Miami, with that speed, got to them. I'm wondering if, that could be a big part of the game plan, even with the talent that you have at wide receiver.
I mean, I don't think I'm giving away a secret to say that the Steelers want to establish the run, especially with what we don't know what the weather is going to be. When we saw in that Baltimore game, if you guys saw that, I mean, the rain was insane. And, they, after some early issues with a couple of handoffs, they were able to hold on to the football. They were able to grind it out. But I think what's different right now about the Steelers, they've always wanted to establish that run, but they never got something going with the pass game. Well, Mason, in his 3 games, has 3 touchdowns of over 60 yards.
Yeah.
The defenses are a little bit more hesitant now to put as many in the box. And so you're seeing the Steelers have success running the ball. And I think when Broderick Jones took over at right tackle, I think that's opened up some things because he's got footwork enough where they can pull him. He can get out there and block at a second level. It's something they didn't have from that position previously. I think all of that's coming together. But, Najee is a guy that can be a workhorse. And, Jaylen Warren, if Najee's not in there, Warren's the guy that can pop a big one on you.
Yeah. Both teams fired offensive coordinators during the year. Right. It's not a normal
William
thing.
And Mary thing.
Right. I think we're going to see more of this in the league. I think the idea of waiting with teams, if it's not working, if it is broke, fix it. It's worked for both of them. What's been the biggest difference?
I think part of it, so the first game was with Kenny Pickett after they got rid of Matt Canada, and they're using a dual coordinator system. The running backs coach is the interim coordinator, and Mike Sullivan, who's been a quarterbacks coach in the league for a while and also been a former offensive coordinator, he calls the plays. Because the quarterback coach has been calling the plays, they have a good relationship. He knows what these quarterbacks are good at. Kenny had a good first day. They struggled against New England and Arizona, and then they've just found this rhythm with Mason. I don't even know if it's as much the play calling as things are being executed at a different level that they weren't at before. But I'll say this about Matt Canada. I mean, Matt obviously knows offense, but it just wasn't working. He's not really good with people, and it just started to snowball, and they had to make a move, and it's paid off for them, much like it has for the Bills.
Yeah, as Ken Dorsey knows football. The guy does. But there was just, even for a guy who had been around, certainly been around with Josh, there wasn't the same connection. And Allen needs the right kind of guy in his ear. He works with everybody. He was very positive about Dorsey, but Joe Brady's more of like a bro, like his guy, like Daboll was. And I think that works for Allen. I just think it does. And I think those relationships and the confidence, coach is going to have confidence or needs to have confidence in his quarterback, but sometimes I know here, Brady started right out just pumping up Josh Allen. He's the best. Can't wait to coach him, blah, blah, blah. And even for a guy with his talent, he needed to hear it. Mason Rudolph's been around. He's had good moments and then not so good moments. But I'm watching him and I'm thinking, if you didn't know any better, you would say, this guy's got a ton of confidence right now. Do you feel that when you watch him play?
Yeah, it's a great word, because I think confidence has built within the group, not just with Mason, but within the group, that now these guys are starting to trust each other, especially on the offensive line, because they've had success now. That has bred more success because they believe in each other. And Mason's always been a confident guy. But here's the other thing with Mason. When he was a third string quarterback, which he was for most of the season, every practice rep was on point. He would stay and throw with any receiver that wanted extra throws. Mason would do it. Whatever they asked him to do, Mason would do it. And he'd do it with a good attitude. Not that he was happy that he was a third string guy, but he did it with a very professional attitude. So when he got in there and he started having success, he already built up credibility because of how he worked on scout team and other positions for being a veteran. And I think that it's all just built on each other here over the last few weeks.
Coaches and players never pay a stitch of attention to things like point spreads because, they can't do that. And Mike Tomlin would never use the fact that they're double-digit underdogs for this game, would he? He would never mention to his team that nobody thinks you can win.
He wouldn't tell us that. He wouldn't tell us that. Josh Miller used to punt for the Patriots, used to tell us stories about Belichick. He would post all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I think he would, but he would post all of it. And he said Tomlin will let guys know, even if it's not through his words, through assistant coaches, or he tells the right player who he knows will blab it to the room, but they understand what they're up against. I mean, I think they can look at it globally and say, even in the smallest comparison of Josh Allen to Mason Rudolph, like, that's why the point spread is what it is. And they're just going to go up and fight and do what they can and do it without their best player, which is going to be a real big uphill climb.
Yeah. Where's the fan base with this team? Because I just don't feel like Steelers fans would ever feel like it's house money that they're playing with. What do you think? I mean, granted, fans are going to be fans. They're all going to be all over the place. But in general, what do you hear and what do you think they believe this team can do?
They're excited about. So they are excited about that. They're hesitant in the fact that Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years. That is a continuous talking point. For as great as it might seem from the outside, while Mike Tomlin has another winning record or non-losing record, or, hey, Mike Tomlin's got him back in the playoffs, this fan base expects more. And there is heat. Now, I'm not saying he's on a hot seat, but I'm saying there's heat from the fans that, hey, how about taking that next step? How about a playoff win? Like, this is great, but how about a playoff win? And now I'm not saying there's a built-in excuse, but I think they also understand now that they're going to Buffalo without TJ.
Yeah, that's I would say there's a sense of relief in Buffalo because, as you said, he's a game wrecker, and you got to pay attention to him. Not that you don't with Hayward and the other guys on the defense, but you got to feel that way. It's interesting you mentioned that about Tomlin, where the expectations are. He's won a Super Bowl, been there, and now it's got to win playoff games again to get back. Here, it's been more with McDermott. Like, you've had Josh Allen. They've gone backwards a little bit from AFC title game to divisionals, and last year losing to Cincinnati. So there was pressure on him, and here they are winning 5 games in a row. From the outside now looking, and now focusing on the Bills.
And Michael,
yeah.
I'll tell you this. We had a call from New York, from Brooklyn, actually, a couple days ago, and he was just mystified on how spoiled Steeler fans are. He said, I'm a Jets fan. And the response was, well, okay, let's assume you're also a Yankee fan. Are you happy with just having a winning record as a Yankee fan?
Right.
No. And Steeler fans are like that. They expect that it's their birthright to be in a Super Bowl. And when they're not even winning playoff games, they get a little ornery.
Yeah. Couple of other things. I wanted to ask you about the defense. You mentioned like Fitzpatrick. They're optimistic of him playing. Who else should we be paying attention to, especially in that secondary? Who's a guy that people wouldn't notice, wouldn't know the name maybe, but has made plays, and now you're going, watch out, because, Josh Allen, as great as he is, will give the ball away. We've seen him do it. Who's out there looking for the football?
Well, they've got a couple. Deontay KZ is back from suspension. He was suspended for a helmet-on-helmet hit against the Colts for the rest of the regular season. He led the league in interceptions a couple of years ago with Dallas. He's a ball-hawking safety. And if you have Minka in that lead role and allow KZ to roam around, he's a guy who could pick off a pass. Patrick Peterson, the old great corner, is now more of a safety slot guy, but he's got a good eye for the ball. He had an interception 2 weeks ago. And then Joey Porter, the son of Joey Porter, the linebacker for the Steelers, is going to be the guy that's going to shadow Diggs. He's not a great interceptor, but he is a guy that they think can make plays, and we'll see if he steps up in this. But those are a couple of names to watch for.
A year ago, the Bills played the Vikings in a crazy game. They ended up losing at the end, and Patrick Peterson picked off Josh Allen at the end in overtime, and then went on a podcast and basically described how he knew the play was coming. And look, he's a veteran. He sees everything. He watches tape and all. I was a little surprised he said it. I don't think he was saying it in an arrogant way. I think he was talking just as a football player. They had watched tape and they knew it was coming. But to a lot of fans, that was more critical of Ken Dorsey and the way they called plays. But I looked at it and thought, that's what you get with those kind of guys. They do pick up those things. That's why he's been able to stay in the league as long as he has, right?
Yeah, and there was a game earlier this season where he went on his podcast and was critical of a team that the Steelers played, and that team torched the Steelers, and that would be San Francisco.
Yeah,
and he thought, well, I know what's coming. I understand San Francisco, and then they just torched him. So he's won. And that being said, he won the Chief Award, which in Pittsburgh is for the guy who has the best cooperation with the media. So he's been great to deal with, but sometimes he's put his media career and forgot he's still playing, and maybe he shouldn't have, opened his mouth when he shouldn't have. But the guy can still play the game, just not he's just not a cornerback anymore.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Guys would normally blame us if we put something out there, yet they do it on their own.
I know.
Go into trouble. All right. You've watched this team for a long time. Let's just say the weather is not a major issue. It's just a regular game. What do you think, and what would it take for the Steelers to pull off the upset?
Well, the last time they did it up there a couple of years ago, they got a block punt that they turned into a touchdown. They got the fumble that I referenced earlier from TJ Watt that set up another score. That has to happen for this team. They do have those type of players that can make plays on special teams, but they need that to happen. They need Minka to have a special game. Last year in the opener against Cincinnati, Fitzpatrick single-handedly beat the Bengals, picking off Joe Burrow, blocking an extra point that would have that forced overtime because the extra point was missed. He's a guy that can wreck. He can make plays that can wreck games. That's what has to happen. Then they have to have enough offensively where they can control the football. They haven't turned it over at all with Mason Rudolph there, and he's perfect so far. If he continues to make those type of decisions, they make a play or two down the field. That's how they're in this game. But all of those things have to happen because their margin for error is like this.
Yeah. Well, the one thing about the Bills, I mean, the defense has been really, really good. I mean, they shut Tua down. They shut Dak Prescott down. They really have not given up a lot. And they've been playing a bit shorthanded, though they've got a lot of their players back. So, McDermott had to dig in. That 3-part article about Sean McDermott, that happened right as they were going to Kansas City. And since that point, his teams won, their final games to go to the playoffs and win the division. And his defense has been really good. But, there are times this Bills offense can struggle and they're looking for something. And they've had close games with the Chargers, close game with the Patriots here at the end, and they found a way to win. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. Well, we look forward to you coming up again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's we'll see how the weather turns out. Let everybody know where they can follow you and maybe even listen to you guys on the air.
Yeah, you could at 937thefan.com is where all the stories are. You can stream us there, or you can follow me on Twitter at jhathhorn, HATHHORN. We'll have Steelers coverage. I look forward to going up there. Like I said in the beginning, I love that these two fan bases, two cold weather fan bases, get this opportunity to meet. I have crazy respect for each of them. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've said this to you before. I wish they were in the same division.
I know
it almost happened years ago. I think it would have been great, but we got stuck with Brady and Belichick for 20 years. That's what ends up happening. All right, Jeff, thanks very much for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, and thanks to all of you for watching for the Buffalo Plus podcast. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be up at practice. We'll have reports all week long getting you ready for Bills and Steelers on Sunday. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.